Hi there, friends, and welcome back to the Vulnerable podcast. That's right. I'm going to start calling it the Vulnerable instead of the Vulnerable because people are getting confused. It's still the same concept. I'm just going to say Vulnerable. Whatever. Point aside, my name is Kennedy Hibbert. I am a voice actor. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a human being, and I'm stoked that you are here today. I have a really exciting guest I can't wait to introduce you to, but as usual, we're going to start off with the Vulnerability of the Week, or the VOTW. It's where I go first and I share something that makes me vulnerable. And last week we were talking about depression and anxiety. This week, I'm going to share something that means just as much to me as those crazy subjects. To you, it might not seem like a big deal, but it is to me. As you might have seen, this episode and our last episode are in a new studio space. It's really cool. We got this whole jungle going on. But we're doing this new thing where I am no longer editing the cuts between clips. I had the option to continue recording on SD cards, and I'll stop talking camera lingo in a second. But all it means is that Jason, our awesome engineer over there, can cut to whatever he wants at any time, so I have no control over if it's good or not. But you know what, guys? It's gonna be okay. I am making an active effort to trust others, to let some of that burden off of myself a little bit, and to be vulnerable. So that's my vulnerability of the week. It might seem silly, but it's a big deal to me, so there you go. I feel a little better after sharing that, so thank you very much. And any terrible editing cuts are not my fault. I'm just kidding. It's all fabulous. Right, Jason? Jason's giving a thumbs up. No, Jason's amazing. Thank you. With all of that out of the way, it's time to introduce our guest today. I have the wonderful Samantha Morrison here to chat with us.
Hi.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm in the new space. I'm in the new thing.
That's right.
We were just talking about it's growing so much, and I'm super excited to be here and being a part of it, and I'm so happy for you too. So
thank you.
It's you're letting go, and that's a big step, you know.
Exactly.
And we were just talking about outsourcing, right? About how when things get to be too much for you, it's a good thing to outsource. It's not inherently a bad thing.
Yeah, it doesn't make you weak for asking
for help.
Yeah, exactly. And accepting help when it comes your way is also something that can be a challenge for people too.
Especially from talented people like our lovely Jason,
That's
who will shout out forever, right? Shout out engineers.
Always shout out your engineers. But yeah, so give us a little introduction to yourself. You are a casting director, have been working for how many years?
Oh, good.
A lot.
But I've been really enjoying every bit of it. I started as a PA over at Bang Zoom, which a lot of people know of.
What?
Yeah, I started as a PA, and that was my first.
I was an audio intern there last year. Shout out to Bang Zoom Studios.
We love Bang Zoom. But yeah, I started as a PA there, as an intern. And I did my little stint there, and I got to work with Mami Okada to learn a bit from her.
She's fabulous. Another great casting director.
Go Pink. So I got to learn a lot from her, and then from there I did some other stints in production. I worked over at Frame Store VFX for a little bit as a runner. So I did a stint in virtual effects. And then I went back into casting with my lovely mentor, Terry Berland, who was also, we were just talking about Navigala, who's also at Navigala with her assistant, Jamie, who's killing it right now in VO. And I'm super proud of her.
Yes.
But I learned a lot from her, again, on camera and commercial and short film with dabbling in voiceover. But I always knew I wanted to do voiceover. There was something about it that just called me, and I'm a very audio person by nature.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's why do you like this? I'm like, it's vibes, you know? I just vibe. I feel it.
That, exactly.
I feel it in my soul. So I learned a lot from her, and then I graciously was at Mark Grouse Studios for about 6-7 years.
Wow.
Insert meme here.
No, I refuse. We're not even going there.
So I got to work there, and I got to work on incredible projects like Shadowverse, Shadowverse Beyond, Worlds Beyond Now, Black Desert Online, World War Z, the game. And I got to do a bunch of other little stuff. I did spots for Spotify in between all that.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
I did live action localization films from Korea and Russia. So I got to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But video games have always been my bread and butter because it's this nice mix of a heightened performance while in the quote realm of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it has very established rules, if that makes sense. And my
Yeah.
little tism brain's just like, yay! I like rules. I like to know what I'm doing.
Control. We love control.
Yeah, and it's safe.
Yeah.
And it's also because it's a creative field too. It's like I understand the confines.
Mm-hmm.
I always say casting's a lot like putting together an orchestra or an ensemble,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Where you hear these different voices and you build the orchestral piece from it. And so you hear a little bit of here and they're like the clarinet, and then you hear a little bit here and that's like the strings, and then you hit here and that's like the brass
And the bass and the
but you need it all to have a cohesive piece. You couldn't just have you could. I was gonna be like, you couldn't just have all strings, and I was like, well, you technically could,
but for this, but you can't have an orchestra of all one.
Right. If I have a 50-piece orchestra, I can't have all strings,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think about like even massive projects like Black Desert, which is hundreds, if not thousands of like just actors, not even characters. The characters are definitely in like the thousands or tens of thousands.
Yeah.
You know, but the actors themselves, it's like thinking about each one and how they contribute individually. And there's so many to keep track of. And I'm just like, but I love it all.
Yeah.
Just makes sense in my little brain.
Yeah.
So, but I love doing casting. And now I have my own company, Sought After Casting.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you. And that's been really fun. But it's also afforded me the opportunity to do coachings and classes and work with individuals one-on-one to really dig into emotional spaces as actors. And a lot of times it is breaking down those barriers where sometimes we take things too literally, right? Like I like to say, you may not be someone who is isekai'd into a brand new universe that you have to save, but we all understand the foundational feeling of expectations put upon us, right?
Absolutely.
And how do we meet those expectations from other people while also staying like true to ourselves and not overexerting ourselves either.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just kind of break it down into those fundamental, like, where do I pull from? Where's that relevant experience that I can pull from in order to imbue it into this character? So I like working with actors on that a lot and kind of digging into themselves. I've definitely had the recommendation of like, just do a 20-minute meditation before you go into an audition, just to kind of like clear your mind and clear your soul. And so you can really just write it out and really feel it, because that's so much of voice acting is so physical. And I think a lot of people don't think about that.
Exactly.
They think like, oh, it's just here. And I'm like, no, it's all.
It's your whole body.
It's all here, you know?
Absolutely. Like an ocean, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to deep dive into all of that. We heard how you got into casting, but how did you just get into the space in general?
I was a nerd. My family was like,
my family's
like, it's a phase. They'll grow out of it.
Never did.
Nope. So I was handed a Game Boy at like 5-6 years old, and I just haven't stopped. But I've always loved it, and I've always loved just the world building and just getting to escape into it. And so it started from there. And then I'm trying to think of like the first like voice acting thing I heard that really like sparked my interest. It was probably honestly animation, because I say I got into casting because of the brilliant Andrea Romano, who was very much an inspiration to me, because I loved this idea that she cast off of merit. And it wasn't just whose name is going to sell. It was who is the best for the job.
Yeah.
And I've always really admired that. And like, there is a balance to it in certain projects, right? It's in a dream world, we could just always go off of like the talent, right? But there are certain projects where you have to think about these types of things. But I think like she really embodied the way of like how to do that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just finding the best person for the role and the name. It's like the package, right? Giving those chances to people who haven't played this role before, or to give them the freedom to experiment in this new space, right? And even if they feel uncomfortable with it, like encouraging it and being like, I chose you for a reason. Like, I believe in you. And sometimes it just takes that like one person to be like, I believe in you.
Yeah.
You know? And so I like to be that if I can.
And thank you for that. I mean, I have definitely had experiences in my life where someone did that for me. And it was just like, it really is enough just to have one person advocating for you. So thank you for being that for other people. I think all of us, if we're in that situation, should not pull the ladder up behind us, but, you know, let it back down for other people.
Well, I love voiceover too, just as a community. And I talk to other people who are in like different creative fields. And one thing I love about voice acting is the joke is if you were to ask an on-camera actor, to do a role that they couldn't do for logistical reasons, right? Their response is usually like, I'm not available, but good luck. And the voiceover response is, I'm not available, but you know who is. Like, I could totally get you like this person, this person, this person, and they would be fabulous. And I think like that's the difference, right? Is so much of us are just like, man, I'm not qualified, but you know who is. And they've always been very forthcoming about like that word of mouth recommendation.
Yeah.
And that's like so invaluable.
I know. I love that about our community. I think it's what makes us really special.
Yeah. So I started there, and I grew up in like small town Texas where it was just like, it's like every stereotype, like I felt different than those around me. I didn't understand what they were into. I didn't listen to the radio music at all. Like I just kind of was in my own little bubble, and I kind of fell into the group of like, the nerds and the anime watchers. And so we used to just do that together. We'd all like spend Saturday nights together and, watch Toonami online.
Thanks, Toonami.
I am not that young, unfortunately.
You weren't on Kiss Anime pirating other anime?
Oh, do we? Shh. No.
Legally?
Totally.
No. Legally, we were not.
For the sake of my lawyer, no. But so I was just always around these people, and then I started going to conventions and meeting voice actors. And I think we all go through that stage, especially like in early like teenage where we're just like, I want to be a voice actor, or I want to do something like creative, right? A lot of it nowadays is like, I want to be an influencer, right?
Yeah.
And that was like my version of it. Is like, I want to be a voice actor. Because that's where we all start. That's like baby's first like, when you realize, wait, that's a job. Like, that's what people do.
There's someone getting paid to do that?
But then my mind then realized, oh, but there's a person hiring you. There's someone behind the scenes there. And so I was just like, that's fascinating. So I met a bunch of voice actors, and I was just naturally getting along with them really well. And I used to joke like, oh, I want to get into casting, but I don't know who I'd ever pick because I would just love everybody. I'm biased towards everybody. And it started as a joke. And then I moved here, and I kind of like went a roundabout way of like doing things, right? Because I originally came to be a vocalist, like a singer.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, my boyfriend at the time was an audio engineer and an instrumentalist. So we were like collaborating together, and it just ended up not working out. But like we were all around the voice actor people. And so I just kept saying like, oh, I would like to do casting, but it just didn't seem real. Like I just kept saying it, and I don't know why I kept saying it. Something was like inside me, just like trying to like come out, and I just didn't think about it. And then I came across the opportunity for the internship over at Bang Zoom. And when I got in there, it was just like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be, right? And so again, I kind of went a roundabout way. I also used to do experiential marketing. Which is basically I used to do the game demonstrations on show floors at like the big conventions like E3
cool
and Comic-Con and stuff like that. So I was always around gaming. So even if I wasn't like working in it, like how I am in this capacity, I was always around it. And so I remember I was a product specialist for a game called Lego Dimensions, which was a Toys to Life game. And I remember I was like super excited because when they started announcing the voice cast, that's the part that I got excited for. I was just like when they got Brian Blessed, I was just like, it's Brian Blessed! Like, y'all don't know, it's Brian Blessed! And everyone's just like, who? I'm just like, never mind. Just leave me alone. But like, my mom always told me that too, where she's like, you would remember everyone's names. Like, you would remember like who played what and who the director was and who the producer was. But like, I never knew kids that did that. They always knew the character names, right?
Sure.
And they always like were so fixated on the characters, but you were always interested in like behind that, right? Who did that? Who made that happen? And so I think it all just kind of culminated together. And by the good graces of the universe, like here I am now,
Here
you know?
You are now.
I guess I manifested it in a weird way.
Absolutely. And you worked hard for it, and that's something to be super proud of.
Yeah. It's a lot of it, I'm sure, as you know, is like you write a lot of momentum, but a lot of it's like instinctual too. And it's like, it's this combination of like luck and intuition and passion and dedication and like all these things that only you can have control. And so when you finally get into it, you're just like, oh, I did it. So I really love that part of it too, where it's just like every day I'm just like, wow, I get to do this thing. Like, this is what I get to do. And like, I never would have thought, little me who just was like, I want want to be a voice actor, would be in the position I am now.
That's so sweet.
So I like to think about that. It's like, what would 13-year-old me think is really cool? Like, watching their little anime shows and then me going, I know them. Like,
and now you're a part of it. It's so cool.
So it's really fun, and I love it so much. I literally can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your casting experience. I think as a casting director, even that word in the VO world carries a lot of weight, a lot of power. And I'm sure in your experience, you've felt that a little bit. And maybe tell me about your experience dealing with other people in the VO space.
It's hard when you feel like you're the voice, right? Not the voice of reason, but like the go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're the authority. That is such a pressure, right? And like for me, I'm naturally introverted. I'm naturally a voyeur. Like, I don't necessarily like being the center of attention, which is like part of the reason I ended up not going the voice actor realm.
Sure.
Is because like I realized like with my personality and aptitude, it just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire like voice actors because there's such like a tenacity that they have, right?
We're a tough breed.
Well, yeah, but it's you're
breed.
constantly vulnerably putting yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Like, and we have to live by the mentality of like send it and forget it, right? And it's hard to send it and forget it when you're just like, I was bawling by the end of this and you're telling me to just forget the last like 15 minutes that just happened. Like, that's a lot. But you're constantly doing that in like cycles. Right. And so it's just like it's the stop and go and stop and go. And even like in session, it's a lot of like you don't get to just ride momentum necessarily. It's a lot of stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. So it's so emotionally taxing and like, you feel it in your heart and in your body. And it's just it resonates because energy begots energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you can't, as a voice actor, be half-hearted about it. You have to give your full self into it. And so when you see that, and like from my perspective, again, as a voyeur, when I see that, I'm just like, yes! Yes!
I totally feel you. I was in a session last night where they're like, all right, go ahead. And I like am crying, screaming in this like poor girl's voice. And then you just come out of it and they go, okay, thank you. Hold on. And you're just like,
oh no. And then the side, you see them talking to each other behind the glass. You're just like,
and it's crazy. Though, that
do?
energy that you're talking about, you're either going or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like half doing anything. It is the most vulnerable work.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, it's also just technically so difficult.
Sure.
And like even on like another side, like on the director side, because I do directing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to the fantastic Patrick Seitz about directing.
Yes.
And it was my first time. I was working on Black Desert. I was doing an expansion for Black Desert, like as the director, because the normal director, Chris Bevins, just wasn't available at the time. And he trusted me, which I like am so immensely grateful for.
Another example of people believing in you.
Well, he's just like, you're so involved in it, like, right? This is not like we're hiring someone completely new to like pick it up. Like, this franchise and you know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped that I already had that foundation. But when I was doing that, we were in some really emotional scenes with it was a character portrayed by the fantastic Laura Stahl.
Oh.
Who is already,
Yeah.
such an incredible actress. And it was a lot of like heavy emotional lifting and trauma and all these things with her character. And I walked out of it and I met up with Patrick and I was just like, he was like, how are you? And I'm like, directing is exhausting. Because again, it's one of those things you don't think about until you're in it, right? You're just like, oh, a director, they just go do the thing and you do the thing, right? But as the director, again, you're having to take that all in, right? You're having to take the full context into everything, emotionally process it, and then figure out logistically or technically, okay, how do we then get to the next place? Or is this showing correctly? And like, this is how I interpret it, but is my audience going to see it like that? Or is my client going to see it like that? And there's so many layers and things to consider that it's just like, it makes my brain hurt. And it's just like, I told him that and he's like, yeah. But it was so validating to hear that from somebody else where it's like, am I doing this right? Like, am I supposed to be this tired after just sitting all day telling people what to do? And he's like, yeah, because if you didn't, like, I wouldn't feel like I was doing it properly if I wasn't, like, it's such a beautiful thing, and it's one of those things where it's like, our audience, the fans, right? They get to indulge in it in a specific type of way. And then we also get to indulge in it in a specific type of way. Like, I'm very analytical when I'm listening to even like other vocal performances, or I'm watching a movie, or watching some live theater. I went to a live theater thing yesterday, and they were asking me how I thought about it. And I was just like, well, I do this for a living. Like, my job is literally, it sounds terrible, my job is literally to judge people,
Yeah.
you know? And so if I'm going to be given that authority, I need to treat it with respect,
Yeah.
right? And I need to not take advantage of that positioning either.
Right.
And I feel like as a casting director, you're kind of just put in the position of like, what is my goal? Is my goal to direct a project? If someone's coming to me for a consult, like the worst thing I hear people saying, like when somebody's coming specifically to a casting director for feedback is, that was good, don't change a thing. And I'm just like, that's not why they're here. They're not here for that validation.
Mm-hmm.
They're here because they want to get better. They want to like
grow,
advance
improve.
their craft, right? And like that's such a responsibility for somebody to take in on themselves that I can't imagine like just treating it with like, sure, do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, no, I'm going to like, we're going to dig into it. You have to meet them on the level, right? You have to like meet them emotionally on the level. And so I think that that's such an important thing too, is like that empathy that you have even in positions of authority like casting or like directing or anything like that, you know?
How does it come to like building boundaries with people when you're in that position of power?
Thankfully, I'm really fortunate that a lot of people already like kind of understand that. I almost feel like sometimes it's like, how do I traverse that? Because I'm such a personable person, like when I get to talking to somebody. And I think when somebody sees like casting director, they think, you know, there's a barrier between like you and them automatically, right? You're here and I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
and there shall the two meet. And I try to meet people on the level, and I'm just like, hi, how are you? Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. You know, and I'm so happy you're here today. I heard your audition. And like, you know, I'm not doing it to feed your ego. I'm doing it
Mhm.
to make you feel comfortable, right? Like, you are here because you deserve to be here.
Yeah.
You're not here by accident.
Yeah.
And I want people to really understand, like, I don't just choose you just to say I chose somebody. You know, I chose you because there was something about you. It's your performance. It's your
Yeah.
attitude. I tell people, even if your audition doesn't like nail it, right? Sometimes people just see the potential in that.
Mhm.
And that potential is stronger than those people who did, quote unquote, nail it.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about the selective process of it.
Mm.
And taking that like into consideration, I never want to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, it's usually in good faith, right? I don't think anyone ever comes to me maliciously,
Of course.
you know, but it's always in good faith of like, I just want to let you know I exist. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't even mind that. Like, great, you exist. But don't be hounding. If I'm not doing something, there's probably a reasoning for it. And
Mhm.
it's not personal. If you're not getting auditions from me, it has nothing to do with you as a person.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there are so many other factors that could be considered into this.
Mhm. So when you feel that uncomfortable itch from people, maybe a little bit of that desperation, what is the best way that you protect yourself and build those boundaries?
It's hard because in the past I've had people who could kind of like create that little barrier for me. Like I could put people like, oh, can you go greet this person or can you do this,
Mhm.
right? But in my own, now that I'm on my own and I'm freelancing, it is a little bit more difficult because I feel really bad, like not responding to messages. But it's also like, you know, I'm suffer from neurodivergence myself,
Mhm.
and I have to work on it every day. And
Yeah.
so part of me is like, I get very, not catatonic, but I forget to do basic things. I
Yeah.
forget to brush my teeth. I forget to check emails. I forget to respond to text messages. Like, it's so overwhelming, that executive dysfunction, right? And so nowadays it's a little bit more difficult kind of balancing it, but I've been very fortunate that no one's really tried to push it.
That's good.
But in the past, I've been very fortunate to have people who I could be like, hey, can you go like greet this person? Or if this
Mhm.
person calls, can you just tell them I'm not here? Or,
Mhm.
you know, and I don't like lying, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think like a confrontation is also the best way to handle that, right? Because I do want to keep them, let me rephrase. I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Because I know it's coming from that good place,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't ever want them to think like, oh, they hate me or something like
Mhm.
that. And also, as a casting director in my brain, unless you're doing something egregious, you are always going to be part of that potential talent pool to me.
Sure.
And I never want to like make that like judgment call on somebody just because they're enthusiastic about something.
Sure.
You know, there are obvious boundaries with that, right? But I just kind of try to take everything in context. If you're not trying to be hurtful or harmful, or you're not hurting others around you, I will pretty much take on like as much as you want. But if you start getting pushy about it, like I'm a firm believer in the block button. I'm a firm believer in the, distancing myself, like in the ways that I have the control over. And also, like, I've been taking steps more recently, separating my personal and professional kind of lives.
That's
right?
really important. Really important.
I tell everybody, I'm like, you should have a hobby that's not related to your career.
Always. Oh my God. I'm very passionate about this. Always.
No, and I just think it's so important because you have to have that point where you like step away, right? One of my casual interests is YouTubers, and there's lots of overlap, obviously, with voiceover, but it's more of like that casual realm for me where I half understand it. But one thing you hear them often say is like, this became my life. It became all consuming, and I never had the opportunity to step away from my love of my art.
Yeah.
And especially when you start integrating creativity and your personal life and your career, it's very hard to balance and also separate those things.
Mm-hmm. Especially when the people you know in your personal life are the same people you know in your professional life.
Right.
I bet that there's a lot of people listening right now who struggle with boundaries in their own life. I know last year I was struggling with boundaries with a roommate that I had or a friend that I had, and I still kind of feel that. What would you have to say to people out there right now who are struggling with those boundaries, want to put their foot down but still want to be kind people?
I think that I'm always a believer of honesty is the best policy. I'm very straightforward. Depending on who you are, I'm straightforward, I'm blunt, or I'm curt. It depends on who you are, right? But I would rather say what I mean than leave any room for interpretation, right? And that's not like you're saying like, get the F out of my life. You know what I mean? You're not saying that, but it's just like, hey, I understand like you're interested in this. Like, let's use the example of somebody wants me to cast them in something.
Sure.
But I don't know them because I don't know what they're capable of, right? They've never auditioned. They just kind of are just like, job, please. And I just have to tell them like, look, I understand you're excited about this and I understand this is something you want to do. But there are steps to this, right? It's you have to start working on this part, working on your acting, working on the technical skills. I always recommend classes. And even if you can't afford to participate in the classes, like just observe classes. That's really, I think, the best entryway is just observing these classes with these professionals, and especially like working professionals, to see what it actually is, what the kind of structure is like first. Get a gauge if you actually like it first before like immediately jumping into give me job, please.
Yeah.
Because I tell people, I'm like, there's no other industry where you could do that. You couldn't walk into a hair salon and with no experience and go, I want to be a hairdresser, give me a job.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the same thing with acting and voiceover. You can't sit there and being like, I have no experience, make me famous.
Exactly. But communication is such a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like making sure that if you have issues that you're honest about them, but also that you communicate them in a timely manner, I think. There's issues and boundaries need to be set, but we're afraid, so we kind of hold them in for a long time.
Well, you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings.
Exactly.
Right? But there are parts where you're just like, it sounds terrible to say, but it's just like, I can't care about the feelings right now because I have to care about my feelings, right? It goes both ways.
Who's going to care about your feelings? Exactly.
Right. It's like it goes both ways, right? You can't have expectations on somebody that you wouldn't put upon yourself.
Ooh.
So I really believe that like if you have expectations about how you want others to act, behave around you, that you have to embody that and you have to model that, right? I have a toddler, so like literally this is like what I have to do where they're just like, emotional healing, emotional maturity, and teaching your kids that. And it sounds silly to say, like, it works well with adults too, like if I expect my child is never gonna drink soda, I better not be drinking any soda myself. Like, that's how I see it. Now, is that how everyone operates? No. But that's how I personally find that, like, I enforce those boundaries is I don't put expectations upon others that I don't have upon myself.
Yeah. Being in the casting business for so long and doing so many things, have you ever experienced burnout?
Oh, gosh. Yes. That's a very powerful thing is burnout. Unfortunately, part of the reason I had to go freelance was being overworked by my previous job. And it wasn't anything on them. It was just we were growing. We were trying to figure out, like, how do we how do we help each other? Because we'd never been as busy as we had been at that point. And I had never been in that kind of position. Like, this was all new feelings to me, and balancing this. And then also trying to keep, the balance of the work-life balance on top of everything else. And again, because of the integration of voiceover within like a community, right? We're very close-knit. We make a lot of friends within our little industry. And it's like you said, it's that overlap of friend and peer, and sometimes they're our superior and stuff like that, and balancing all of that. So burnout was really hard, and it was really hard to get through it because I could feel my creativity suffering. I could feel like I look back on some choices, and not that I regret them, but it's just like I was having trouble processing the information. I would have to listen to an audition like 3 times to get like what was actually happening versus like usually I can listen to it and I can immediately pick up on what's happening. It's very instinctual for me. But this was something where I was like, I had to listen or read it 3 times, and I still wasn't like feeling confident in my decisions, and my intuition was suffering because it was so fixated on all these other things that were happening. So I had to kind of take a step back, and I'm slowly reworking my way in. I started my own company with the idea of like slowly working my way back in, even in little things. Like, I hadn't played a video game in 5 years. Like, I hadn't touched a game in I don't even know how long. So as little things like, I'm going to go play a video game, like I'm going to go back. Like, what started my love for this in the first place, right? You go back to those foundations after hitting that point.
Yeah, I really love that. It's you going back to boundaries. You set a boundary between yourself and the overwork, took a step back away from that job, and then you had all this time to focus on self-care.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I mean,
oh my God,
logistically, it's a nightmare. You're just like, how am I going to afford my rent? Like, I have a child. How am I going to make sure that they're provided for?
Sure,
and
keeping that communication open, and again, being honest. Like, guys, I'm not saying you got to quit your job.
Please don't.
Please don't. But advocating for yourself is so important, right?
Yeah. Well, I could have just as easily just keeled over, right, after everything. I could have just been like, I'm not cut out for this. Like, if this is how it's going to be, I'm never going to get past this point. And because you get in that cycle of darkness.
Sure. And I think that is another, side effect of burnout is just complete depression and hopelessness.
But it's also like the inadequacy too. Like, I couldn't do this thing that so many other people can do so easily, right? It's like, I feel like this big complainer and just inadequate in like what I'm doing. And then it's like, was I always inadequate? And then that imposter syndrome and that negative self-talk just starts getting in your head, right?
Classic imposter syndrome.
Oh, it's for real. It's like, was I wasting all this time? Did my work and my contributions mean absolutely nothing at the end of the day? And then I you take the step back, and I'm very fortunate for my support system too.
Yeah.
My husband, bless him, he's like my rock.
Oh.
And he's the one who comes back and he's like, what right now does not negate everything that you've done before. Everything you've done before. Listen to what people have told you before. Believe people when they've told you before how influential you are and how much you've contributed and how much you've helped them. Like, if you're the one who wants to be honest and upfront with people, you have to expect that these people are doing this for you. They're not placating you. They don't. Why would they need to, right? Why would they waste words just to feed your ego if they didn't actually mean it? Because they have other things that they could go do, right? They have other avenues that they can expand this energy into. But they chose to tell you this for a reason.
Yeah.
So take it. Trust that. Trust your work. Showcase it. Look at what you've done. It's like taking that step back, right? When you're so into it, you kind of lose sight of it. And it's not until you take that step, that panoramic view, where you're just like, oh, I did it, And it's also that advocation of you can take the step back. You don't have to always be at an 11, right? There's this kind of model, I think, recently where it's always you have to go upward, 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 upward all the time, right? And there's a point where it's just that's not sustainable.
No, and it's so tough because we also live in a capitalistic society,
right? Exactly.
So it's
record profits,
exactly.
record profits. Yeah,
we live in a society. We do. We live in a society where we are expected to go above and beyond, and where overwork is kind of popular, expected. And if your coworker worked way more hours than you and they're so tired and they didn't get any sleep,
you're expected to meet that.
Exactly.
Even though you are enforcing your boundaries of hey, I need to go rest. I need my full 8 hours, you know?
Exactly.
That's not unrealistic.
And it's so hard. What was it? Just this week on Sunday. Sunday is my aquarium day. I love volunteering at the aquarium. Podcast listeners know this. I do it all the time, but I had to call out, which for me was like a big deal.
Right.
Because I love it. I want to do it. I want to be there. But I was so exhausted from the week. And so again, setting that boundary between myself and this overwork. And I took a very nice day off and it was really lovely.
Well, I think also I tell my students this, where it's just like, we're such people pleasers. I think by default, a lot of us,
especially in this field,
in our little subsect.
But I think as humans generally too, we want to make people feel good.
Yeah. But I think one of the biggest things I tell people is like, protect your peace. You know, you have to protect your peace in everything that you do. Like, if someone's asking you, hey, I have a last minute thing. Can you make this session in 2 hours? And you know, I'm going to be rushed and I'm going to be high. And I could, but it's probably not the best idea, right? But we're so in our head of like, we're never going to get an opportunity again. And then they're never going to call me again, or all this, whatever, all these negative things that are associated with it. And it's like, but if you can't do it, don't do it. And I know that sounds like so simple. And it's not simple. It's a lot easier to say than it is to
That is like
embody,
one of the most
right?
difficult things ever.
Yeah, but again, it's like, there's a way to meet that, right? Unfortunately, I'm not available today, but I'd love to be considered for anything you have in the future. You don't even need to say with the context of like, with further notice. Just, I appreciate the opportunity and I thank you so much earnestly for it. I am not available, which is facts. But I would love to be considered for the future. And that's a way to protect your peace, right? Again, instead of burnout and overexerting yourself and pushing yourself too far, it's being able to check in with yourself and make sure that you are okay. Because you're going to be the one that's in charge of all of that by the end of the day, right? You are responsible for yourself. And other people, until you say something, are not going to know that. Right? So it's not even necessarily about enforcing boundaries or anything like that. It's just protect your peace, whatever that means to you. Be that in how you operate or how you interact with people, or even like with your auditions, right? Let's say you don't get to your auditions till 10 p.m. and you have 8 from your agency, right? You don't have to do all 8. And I know that's hard because we want to, right?
Of course.
We want to put out there and we want to do all these things, right? But it's also like looking at it and being like, okay, I don't have, I know there's like the term of spoons, but I like to use terms like spell slots or XP.
Ooh, I'm going to keep that.
Yeah.
For
so
pod.
It's like, I just don't have the means right now for whatever that means, right? Yeah. I can't do this. And I know that if I try to push through it, my performance is going to suffer.
Right. You're out of spell slots. Now you need to go take a long rest.
Yeah.
Or even a short rest.
You got to recover,
right?
Or a stamina bar is a great one that someone told me too, a stamina bar. So like your grip bar is like almost loose, right? And so you have to like make that decision. And it's hard. It's hard to really step back from yourself, especially when you're in that mentality of like, I want to do the thing. If you have 8 auditions, pick your top 3. And then if you suddenly get in the momentum where you feel like you can do more, do another one, but start small and like, just do what you can, because it's a quality over quantity thing where if you have 3 strong auditions, right, that's better than 8 mid auditions, because otherwise you're just expending your energy for really nothing.
Yeah.
Other than just to say, I'm here. And I'm like, but I already know you're there. That's why I sent you the audition, because I knew you were there. But if you come back and you're like, oh, well, I was able to do this. Fabulous. I don't need to know anything more than that, right? I don't need to know your why or anything. That's what you felt like you wanted to do. And that's what you felt like would resonate best with me. Like, that's the mutual relationship, right? And I think if somebody is sitting there like actively making you feel guilty, like you didn't do this thing or you didn't do all these things, like, I'm the kind of person like I wouldn't be around someone like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around someone who's like making me feel bad all the time.
No one should shame you for taking time for yourself, not your friends, not your family, not even society, dude. Like
just again, I feel like being upfront, right? Hey, I need this time, right? And it's sometimes you have to over communicate a little bit at first. And then once you get in that like system and these people like understand your ebbs and flows, then you won't have to be as like, I don't want to say transparent, explicit about it.
Yeah.
Where it's just like they'll understand, they'll feel your vibes, right? They'll be like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need a break?" We do that in studio where we can tell in a session someone's like kind of getting tired, but you can tell they're just like, "But I don't want to like, I don't want to ruin the momentum, right?" And it's just like, no, rest your voice, take a break. That's your moneymaker. Take care of that about anything. Don't push yourself because it's going to create like these residual effects later on. And I don't want to be responsible for that. I don't want to be the person who you tell the story of like, yeah, I blew out a session in a thing that Samantha cast me in. I'm like, don't do that. I don't want that. And you don't want that.
No, no one wants that.
No, I want you to be safe, But yeah, so I'm all about like protecting your peace, right? And I'm all about like enforcing your boundaries because that's what's going to create a stronger performance at the end of the day. Like, you have to be in a safe space in order to be vulnerable, to translate that into your craft. Like, you have to be okay in all these different avenues, right? And even if like you're saying like, oh, I'm sad today or I'm depressed today, right? Like, you can channel that. If you're in a good space otherwise where you're like, I love, I feel okay and I have this capacity, I'm not feeling the best today, but this character is also going through something today, right? This character is feeling very much like how I'm feeling, channel that, use that, It's not about like, oh, I don't feel like it, so I'm never going to do anything again. It's, I don't feel like it, but maybe I will later, or maybe I could try. Sometimes it's even like just trying. Even if you don't send it, just trying it. Because you might just you might feel it. Where you're just like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Or like, oh, wait, I have a better idea now. I can do this. And then you get like that surge of energy sometimes. It's a lot of, I like to be kind to ourselves. I'm like, I know you don't want to, Samantha, but you kind of have to. And it's okay. Take your time, drink your water, just don't put so much pressure behind it. And I know, again, easier said than done in our industry.
But it's something that we can get better on with time, right?
Yeah.
It gets easier that way.
I think so, too. Once you start doing it, then you'll get used to it and you'll be able to answer those questions a lot easier as you start doing it more.
Yeah.
So
100%. So let's talk a little bit more about the specifics of vulnerability and voiceover as from your experience as a casting director. What do you think, we talked a little bit about it, but what do you think it takes for someone to be truly vulnerable and authentic in the booth?
So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to actors is your character's not thinking about booking the role.
Ooh.
Your character is not thinking, what's for dinner later? Your character's not thinking, oh, I have to go to this session in 2 hours or whatever. Your character's not thinking about any of these things. So when you get into like that headspace of the character, you have to just solely be empathetic towards what they are going through. Like, what is their environment they're going through? What is their arc in this like portion of their dialogue? What am I trying to convey? Not only to like, if scene partner, if I have one, but what am I trying to convey to my audience? Like either about this character or about the environment or something. There's a reasoning behind everything that we do in voiceover. Every word is chosen with intention, right? And so if everything surrounding it is chosen with intention, and if you're not meeting it on that level of intention, it's not going to ever translate into your performance. So I think being intentional about things, really thinking like, okay, this sentence, what am I saying versus what do I mean, right? If I'm saying like, one of the examples I give is when I was casting for World War Z, there's a character and it was in one of the DLC expansions and he wanted to be part of the military originally. And it ended up not working. I think he has like an old injury or something. So he ends up being a security guard and then ends up taking care of like his aging parents. And then the zombie apocalypse happens, right? So he's traveling with this group of like survivors, not knowing anything about like his parents or anything like that, but obviously having this like military background. So they get to like a safe area and the line was something like, we're not out of the woods yet. We need to be safe or we need to be careful, right? And I had a lot of people read that as like, general, like, be careful, do what I say, I'm the authority figure, blah, 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 all these things. And I had this one actor, I couldn't even tell you who it was. And they read it with such a vulnerability of, this is my new family. I don't know what's happened to my family, right? And I'm actually scared. And I'm worried that these people are going to get hurt. So it's not in this like authority figure, we're not out of the woods yet. We need to be careful. versus we're not out of the woods yet. We need to be, it's just, there was a different way in which it was said. And I was just like, that's brilliant.
And that instantly creates a more memorable character,
well,
right?
A more nuanced character,
exactly.
right? It's like it made me want to know more about them. And I think that's a big thing too. There's another great word of wisdom that somebody told me. I wish I could remember who said it. That especially in video games, lore and cutscenes are rewards. And I was just like, I love that because I think about it in sense of gameplay, right? Where someone's battling a monster and they've spent hours trying to kill this thing and they've had to start over and like it's tenacity, right? We push through it and we do the thing even though it was hard, right? In video games. And the reward for them is this character moment or is this little nugget of lore or is the progression of the story, right? It's the only medium where you have to be actively pursuing further knowledge of the medium. In movies, it's very passive. You kind of are just fed whatever's happening. Video games, you have to do it yourself. And I love this idea because in acting especially, I like to think of it where it's like, this player, this is their treat. This is a reward for this hard work that they've done in this game. You are part of that. Let's make that a celebration. Let's give them something like that they'll remember. And so I've always liked it with that kind of mentality too, where it's just like, oh, this is not just another day in the office, another day in the booth, another day doing whatever. This is an extremely personal moment to this audience. And I think kind of keeping that in the back of our heads should be important because I think sometimes we get like jaded or cynical because we just get used to it, right? Like I know that happened to me when I was under a studio head where I was like, I got used to the monotony, the day-to-day, right? It was just what I did. And then when I suddenly didn't have that, I was like, oh, I took it for granted, right? Where I was like, I miss it. I miss doing this thing and I wish I would have not just seen it as like whatever. I wish I would have taken that intention towards it every single day, right? So now I'm trying to like live vicariously through that mentality of like taking that intention in everything I do.
Because every single character that comes in our inbox or, across your desk is special, is an important person. And it's such a privilege to be in their shoes. We should try to make it special, important, or not try to make it special, but recognize what's already special about it and feed into that, Well,
it's also like as an actor, I would hope that they understand like, even just the audition itself is so meaningful. There's so many hands that touch that to get to you. You were chosen for a reason.
Yeah.
But even just making those small changes of, again, intention, because we're taught that so much to live in the moment, to be present. And I think that just naturally translates into performance as well, where you immerse yourself into the character and everything they're doing is intentional.
And it's intentional because so many people work together to make it exactly the way it is.
Well, yeah, and especially in auditions, it's so carefully curated, especially in auditions, I think, where one of my favorite things is you'll get a character description about something, and then the dialogue has nothing to do with what you just read. The character description will read, happy, peppy-go-lucky, or whatever, and the scene is like they're suffering a death or something, right? But that's intentional. That's to showcase the duality that you can bring, the nuance to the character, where it shouldn't feel like two different people. It should feel like one cohesive person, one well-rounded person, because we are nuanced individuals, right? That's the humanity of voiceover, and that's why the humanity about it is so important, because we're the only ones who can bring that experience into these characters and that nuance. And I think it's so important. And again, it's such a technical skill, and it's so beautiful to watch. I always say voiceover is kind of like music theater a little bit, where there's a musicality to it. We were talking about like when I'm casting, I love trying to think of it like building an ensemble, an orchestra, right? So you have the woodwinds over here, and then you have like the strings over here and the brass over here, and they all have to like be cohesive together in order to create the piece. And so I think that it's so important to keep that in mind, like from my perspective. But then also like in the actor's eye, right? Keeping that in mind too. I like to tell people like, sounds terrible to say, the quote, best person does not always get the role, and that has nothing to do with talent. That has nothing to do with anything about you as a person. I hate to say like, that's just the way it is. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles, but it has nothing to do with you as an individual. And it has everything to do with all these different surrounding things that you have no control over. And being able, again, to relinquish that control and to just put yourself out there anyway, it's admirable. It's brave. So I'm just like, I love being a part of that. I love seeing that because it's such a rare thing that we see in humanity is that vulnerability, right? Just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And this is literally like what we do for a living, So
What an honor.
oh, but also like what a pressure.
Yeah.
What a pressure, right? But we do it again because we love it. We couldn't stand not doing it, right? You don't do it for the fame, the money, the attention. You do it because you can't think of doing anything else. Yeah. So I really love that.
Thank you for that. I feel very invigorated right now. I'm ready to, I have some auditions in my inbox I got to do before tomorrow, and I'm ready to crush them in the most human, authentic, vulnerable way. So
no, I love
thank you for that. And then a follow-up question, how can actors protect themselves when they're being incredibly vulnerable in the booth?
Ooh, that's a hard one. It's just a lot of the time because it is such an isolated kind of field. At least in auditions, you can kind of already have that safe space to kind of play with yourself too. But when you are in session, it's a little scarier, right? Because you're like, okay, I have to hit this many loops an hour and I have to do it to sync and I have to it's all the technical stuff that gets behind it, right?
Yeah. Again, you're losing the control of your environment. You might be in a booth and there's people in there that are unpredictable.
Yeah. But that's part of your showcase as an actor, right? That's why you were chosen, right? For that particular thing is because of your capability to navigate those things.
And you would hope, generally as voice actors, we know how to deal with a booth, a director. That is, that's part of the flow. But for those moments that maybe we have to dive into something deeper into ourselves, something that hurts.
I think that as long as you are able, again, to speak your boundaries, right? Like say you're in a really emotional scene and you get to a point where like, hold on, I've lost the flow, right? It got too real. Let's use big air quotes. Being able to say, hey guys, can I take a moment? Even though you're still in the back of your head being like, we got to make quota and we got to do this and we got to and all these things in the back of your head, being able to have that calm moment to just be like, hey, can I take a second? And not being afraid of that because they want the best performance out of you too. Like everybody around there wants your success because your success is their success. Everyone is sharing in this moment and we're all doing what we want to do to keep doing what we're doing, right? So it's never this judgment of oh my God, why are they here? It's never that. I think if you're in the right environment of just everybody is here because we all want to be here, that should automatically create that safe space for you. In theory, a big theory, but it should. And I hope it does, because if you're in tune with yourself and you are in a space where you can just completely embody everything instead of I always say an actor shouldn't be trying to show off. Everything that you do as an actor should be in service to that character. It shouldn't be, look at me, I'm Kennedy. It should be, look at this character, follow their story, empathize with them. Yeah. Everything is in service to the character.
Everything. That's something I struggle with a lot is I need to prove to them that I know how to act. I need to show that I'm acting. But that is such a pitfall, right?
Yeah.
You actually don't want to show that you're acting. You want to be yes, you want to make great choices, but they need to be a great mentor of mine. Craig Lee Thomas always says they need to be, I love Craig. They need to be justified and interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between choice and intention, right? Your intention can be good and your choice can be wrong. And there's a way as an actor to kind of balance those two. I always talk about the cyclical process of voiceover because it's I believe in energy begetting energy. Right. And as an actor, you're a conduit at the end of the day. You are meant to embody these things. You're not meant to be the star, you are meant to be the messenger. And in the process that I talk about, okay, so you have the script and you have the words that enter your eyeballs from the script, right? And then you have your headspace. Your headspace is the constant, right? Those are things like your environment, the character's age, certain things that will not change no matter what happens in the grander scheme. So that's your headspace. So that's the first thing your dialogue processes through, right? Is to get the initial feeling about, okay, where am I heading with this? And then in that headspace, it ruminates for a little bit, and then you pull it down into your breath, right? I always say your breath is your final emotional check, where you're just it's that gut feeling that we talk about, right?
It literally is.
Yeah, literally. So it's you pull it down all the way into your gut and into your breath, and that's your final emotional check, where it's just okay, I thought originally the character was going to be this way, but actually I wonder if I play it this way instead. Will it be create a more nuanced performance, right? Or will it enhance certain dialogue choices or things like that? Will it showcase those choices you're making? So you do that final emotional check, you breathe it into your breath, you take that breath, and that's your assurance, right? That's me being like, okay, I'm committing to this now in your breath. And it goes back up into your vocal cords, and your vocal cords, that's where all your technical stuff is.
Right.
Right. That's where you're like, okay, I have to hit this voice print and I'm going to stress this word or, whatever, or I got to add texture on this part. And then on this word, I have to earn the turn from this emotion to this emotion. Right. And that's where all your technical stuff is. And then it goes out into the mic, and you just kind of have to, again, throw your hands in the air and be like, I did my best.
Mm-hmm.
I did the thing. But it happens so fast.
Sure.
Because you have to do that with every single word that you say on the script, right? And it's like, it reminds me of one of those like water powerhouses with the big wheels.
Oh, yeah.
It very much reminds me of that. And so it's just like when you're doing all that, again, in the beginning, you're just like, that sounds like a lot. But as you practice, as you go through those auditions, as you book those roles, as you get more experience, that's going to become second nature to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't have to like consciously think about it as much. But again, all of that is contingent upon your mental well-being, because you won't be able to make that whole process happen if you have like, emotional constipation somewhere, because that's going to create that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that goes back to like, even if you have the intention of I'm going to be vulnerable, if you have that emotional constipation in that whole cycle, it's not going to showcase to the people who actually need to hear it. So I think like it's really important to keep that balance. And like we were talking about it. It's like I recommend meditating like 15 minutes before your auditions just to kind of check in with yourself. And if you have things that you're holding on to, even if you're not ready to work past them in that moment, just being like, okay, I'll come back to you. Let's focus on this thing, when we're in a better headspace. And then let's come back to this.
Yeah.
But for now, let's try this.
Mm-hmm. And that can be so freeing, too.
Oh, gosh. And it helps you work through so much, too.
Yeah.
You'll have, like, something, your dialogue, and you'll just be like, I get it now. And it's a weird way to kind of work through it. But I think as creatives, like, that's just what we do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we find ways to imbue ourselves into our creativity in a healthy manner. Or we try to, at least, right? And so I love seeing that process happening in real time. And it's such a beautiful thing, like just to witness, but also when you hear it and it hits you in that, emotional center where you can hear the vulnerability in people. You can hear the choices in the performance. And it's like, if you have someone that's guarded, it's not going to resonate with their audience the way that it needs to.
Right.
So it's so important that like balance, right?
Yeah.
So it's beautiful to me.
It
And
is.
I'm so grateful again when I see everybody performing. I'm just like, that's not easy. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And so I never want to take advantage of you showing that to me.
I love that you said that. It fits into our whole motto of like being vulnerable, being brave. That's something to be incredibly proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that's what you're doing in your work, who cares if they don't cast you in this one, right?
You have to feel okay with what you put out there.
Always.
Yeah.
How might that process be different for someone who's already struggling with like something mentally?
I think, again, you're here for a reason. You were chosen we reached out to you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just, let's say it's just a general call on a roster, right? But you're still on the roster.
Yeah.
Like you're still there, thinking about the aspects of like, I wasn't just chosen off the street. It wasn't frivolous. It wasn't, again, that intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was with intention. Already someone's investing that into you.
Yeah.
And again, it's just taking that into consideration and being like, I deserve to be here, right? I love getting together casts because I'm this type of person too in like voiceover, and even like I find it very much in music too, which is another thing kind of like YouTubing where it's like there's a lot of overlap, but at the same time, like I'm not necessarily as like well versed on it, but I love it for what it is. And in music, I do that too, where it's like I'm listening to an artist, and some of the artists I love with all my heart and soul have like millions of followers, and some of them have tens of thousands of followers or hundreds of followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is like one of my favorite albums ever, and it's only been listened to like 1,200 times in the course of like the existence of it, right? But it's just like that person deserves to be here just as much as big name here.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's another thing to consider, because some people, especially when they're starting to get their footing, they're like, they'll see who else is in the cast that they're with, right? And they'll be like, I'm not as good as this person, or this person's been here way longer than me and been 10 years my senior or something like that. And it's me just wanting to go, yeah, but you're the one who's here. You're the one who booked this role. Like, that should say something about you and why you deserve to be here, And so I think it's really important to remember, like, we're not the type to waste time. We're not the kind of industry. And I think even creatives and like the production industry in general and voiceover, nobody's going to waste time, right? So if you're here or if you're in this position, that's for a reason. And I think it's really important to like never lose sight of that you are chosen to be here with us because we want you here.
Thank you for saying that. I think that is so powerful, especially to an industry. I mean, I have so many friends who imposter syndrome is like a plague, It is so detrimental. It is so sad to see really wonderful, amazing, talented people just doubt themselves. And not that I would know anything about ever dealing with that ever.
Ditto.
But seriously, thank you. That's incredibly powerful, not just coming from a casting director, but just as a human, you seem to really have a good grasp on that.
I try. It's just we're all just trying to muddle through this crazy world,
we sure
right?
Are.
Like,
and it's a crazy one, indeed.
And again, we've chosen to do an intentionally very difficult thing, and I think that if we can all give each other a little bit of grace in that it's just going to like help so much, right? Like, I've always loved voiceover for being such an open and welcoming community. And I just kind of want to perpetuate that ideology with that of just being like open and being like, it's for everybody, And again, if you're here, we welcome you. And the opportunities that you receive are not without cause.
Always.
Yeah.
And that works for anyone who's outside of voiceover too, right? Like,
exactly.
Celebrate your accomplishments. You deserve them.
Don't be shy.
You're there for a reason. Yeah.
No, I love cast announcements. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love seeing all the cast announcements and being like, yay! And then my other favorite thing is when, when someone's announcing like my projects, right? And my favorite thing is, I didn't know you were in this. I totally saw you as that character, or like, I always hoped it was you or something. Like, I love just seeing like the hyping of just being like, I love that we're in this together.
Yeah, it's
right?
so good. It's so important. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We've covered some really tremendous things today. We talked about letting go of some of that control, accepting help, reaching out, setting boundaries when needed to, how to overcome burnout, how to spot burnout, and then, of course, how to feel accepted in your own skin and celebrate yourself and kind of kick that imposter syndrome to the curb.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. I just have one more question for you, and it's the question we ask everybody at the end of every episode. We call it our most vulnerable question. And as usual, my dear listeners, I always encourage you to pause this video and ask yourself this question. If you've listened to a few of these episodes, you know what I'm about to ask you, but maybe try coming up with a different answer this time. Samantha, what is your favorite thing about yourself?
I am very proud of my intuition. And I think it's so foundational to what I do and what I hope to project into the world. And I just think like being intuitive and really trusting in that's my first line of defense, right? Before my logic brain processes anything, intuition is what's going to drive me to already come up with like an established foundation. And I have to trust in that, like to do anything. And so I really feel strongly in my intuition and that I trust it. And I'm very grateful for that. It has never led me astray. And it's allowed me to do all these fantastic things that I've been allowed to do.
So what you're saying is your wisdom score is a 20.
I
with
try,
a +5.
like maybe like a 15 or something.
No. Well, I love that about you too. And thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your story and your insights with me and with everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And do you want to clap us out?
Love ya.
Hi there, my beautiful friends. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Vulnerable. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please check out the description for a list of trusted resources that me and my mom, who is a licensed psychologist, came up with. You can like and subscribe, that's all great, but I would love if you could comment and share your story with us and share this video with a friend who you think might need it. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Great. There's take one.